You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And this is the fourth and final of a series of 4 podcasts that we have arranged for you to help you have a fantastic start to the year 2025. We have been using Sandy Roth's fantastic questions, which the answers to these questions really does help you formulate a plan moving forward in terms of the achievement of your dental practice goals and your personal goals. It works in all sorts of different ways. The questions are, where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? What role will each one of us play in getting there? And how are we going to track getting there? The 4-part series, number 1 was, where have we been? And that was a chance to reflect over the year 2024 and have a think about what worked well, what could be improved upon, and what could be implemented going forward into 2025 to help us be more successful or add on the success that we have already achieved in our dental practices. The second of the series of 4 was, where are we going? So what goals are we going to identify for our dental practices moving into the coming year? Last episode, the episode number 3 in the series of 4, was how we're going to get there, how to formulate that plan in getting to those goals, achieving those goals that you've identified for yourself and for your dental practice. This one, the last one in the series, is what role will each one of us play in getting there? This is recognizing that we are all part of a team. And when we are talking about personal goals, then we just rely upon ourselves. If we've got goals for our dental practice, then all those goals usually have each of those team members needing to play a role for us to be able to achieve those goals. Everything that we do in a dental practice comes back down to the dental patient. Without the dental patient coming in, spending their dental dollars with our practice rather than any other practice, without that happening, we don't have a dental practice. And so everything we do centers around that, centers around how are we going to attract, retain, manage our dental patients in our dental practice. What services are we going to offer? How are we going to offer those services? What level of customer service are we going to supply? All the things that come under that. And so because of it, the fact that it all comes back down to that dental patient, and in most dental practices, every team member is playing an active role with those patients. Therefore, we need to get everybody on board in order to be able to achieve our dental practice goals, because everyone does have a key role to play. And it's always good to have a think about, when we're talking about teams, sporting teams. And being in Victoria, Melbourne, AFL, Australian Football Rules, AFL, Australian Football League, is the sport that I tend to go to. It's the one that I enjoy the most in terms of being a viewer. But it's also the one I read most about in terms of newspapers and autobiographies of coaches and former players within the AFL. And it's always highlighting to me that the approach that we take with our dental teams, if we copy the approach or model ourselves on the approach that football teams take, it's a very relevant thing to do, and it can really help us expand our minds out to what we need to do as leaders within our dental practice to really help striving towards the goals, the motivation that's required all the way through, and how we celebrate as well as a team. And so just as in an AFL team, we've got a certain number of players on the field. They all have a certain part of the field that they play within. We've got the forwards, the wings, the defence. We've got all of these people playing a particular role. And if we had one person drop out of that team, one role not fulfilled, it would severely impact the rest of the team. And so too in a dental practice as well. So what do we need to do to get all our team members on board and identifying what they need to do in terms of the achievement of goals for the dental practice? Now, in the last episode, we spoke about delegation and the need to delegate particular tasks to particular team members. What is incredibly important is to understand that each of these team members is a thinking, feeling human being. And it's not enough just to say, you do this now, because it may not be very motivating for them to do that thing now. Keep in mind that all of our approaches to life from a subconscious level is all around conservation of energy. And so whenever we get told to do something new, it's a leap for us because our subconscious mind just wants to continue doing the things that we know how to do and conserve all our energy just in case we need the energy in the future. So what do we need to do in terms of managing that side of a human being that plays an enormous role in their level of enthusiasm that they bring to any task and any role within our dental practice? And the key is to understand what's going on in their minds. And the key is to understanding how human beings actually work. Wonderfully, there's been an enormous amount of research done in this area, so we don't have to figure it all out by ourselves. And one of the first things I'm going to mention to you is the work of Daniel Pink in his best-selling book, Drive. And in this book, Daniel Pink studies what are the internal drivers that propel us in life. What are the most important things that need to be satisfied in order for us to be able to expect any change within ourselves, change in the actions that we take every day. And he identified 3 main core drivers of most people. Those core drivers are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is that we get to be in command over our actions every day. Sometimes we can have leaders that they say things like, oh, I'm just a perfectionist and I just have very high standards. And what they're actually doing is overstepping the mark of what they have a right to do in terms of controlling another person's human behavior. And so the kind of behaviors I'm talking about is, I'm just a perfectionist. I've got very high standards. That's why I'm making you do things the way that you're doing, and I am scrutinizing your every step in the process. It's just coming from a good place. I don't think it is coming from a good place. I have been a micromanager and I have been micromanaged. And I think it's very important that we don't go down that perfectionism path, that over-scrutinizing somebody else's behavior path when we're working in a team, because it's an absolute demotivator. Believe me, it's an absolute demotivator. And most of you out there who have been micromanaged will agree. Just because you can have your own high standards, but don't hold everybody else up to unrealistically high standards if your management of that is all around people doing things exactly the way that you would like it without any of their own personal nuance to it, without allowing the fact that they're a unique human being, bringing a different flavour to things. Otherwise, it becomes a battle. And the person that's being micromanaged or controlled in that way, as I say, it's very demotivating. And so if your expectation is to have people get on board with your practice goals, then we need to do it in a way that we have a line that we don't cross in terms of how much we control another human being's behaviour. Otherwise, we are absolutely shooting ourselves in the foot because we are creating an environment that is lacking in enthusiasm. And we're also potentially harming that other person from a psychological perspective, because it is a very easy trap to fall into. So do always keep in mind that in order to build and maintain a motivated workforce within your practice, definitely autonomy is very important, that they are in charge of their actions every day. Definitely guide them. Definitely discuss as a group what kind of systems you're going to be putting in place and how we're going to behave here. But don't go over that line where all of a sudden you're controlling their every moment. The second driver is mastery, and this works so beautifully in terms of goals achievement and building a really great high-performance team. There's an internal drive within all of us to progress, to get better at what we do, and that is to master the things that we're supposed to be doing. It's such a wonderful thing for a highly functional team, because keep in mind that our team and the way they behaved and the actions that they took and the decisions that you made in the year 2024 is what had you achieve what you did in 2024. If you want to achieve anything better in 2025, you have to do different actions and behave differently and make different decisions. And so that means expanding, getting better ourselves. And in order for us all to get better, we need to change the way we do things. And that's what mastery is. And so it's a wonderful thing. If we do provide these opportunities to do things differently, to progress within our workplace, we're tapping into one of the core drivers of human beings, the very human beings who are working in your dental practice. And so that's a marvelous thing, providing ongoing opportunities for getting better, team training, etc. The third driver is purpose. And this is the one that's around goals achievement. Purpose. Daniel Pink identified that we want to be able to work toward a purpose, a goal that is bigger than just ourselves, that is more expansive and impacts the greater world rather than just ourselves. And so tap into that driver. One of the things that helps motivate us as human beings, provide that clarity around the goal that we're working towards. So provide the purpose, provide the autonomy that we all get to have an input into how we're going to get there. And then we're also going to be able to provide the training, the skills development, the different way of doing things that in a well-supported environment. So we're also tapping into mastery, that driver as well. So do be aware of the team around you, because it is a group effort. Usually, absolutely group effort. And it's very difficult as a leader of an organization to identify your goal, the plan all by yourself, and then you're just pushing people to do things differently where they don't actually quite understand why they're expected to do things differently. They are lacking in motivation and you feel like you have to be pushing them the whole year forward, where when you really do tap into these core drivers that Daniel Pink identified for human beings, all of a sudden they are self-motivated and the enthusiasm comes naturally. Also, to start to truly understand how your team functions and how you yourself truly functions, but we're talking about team here, is the work of Simon Sinek. Start studying Simon Sinek and a lot of his videos and TED Talks and all the things, and his work around the big why. That when there is a big compelling why with a very good purpose behind it, how people will be inspired just by the idea of that. Keep in mind that usually the big why isn't just to make more money. More money is just like a result of all the hard work. And when you really start looking more deeply into why you are putting certain goals in place for your dental practice, there's usually an authentic, admirable why behind it. So share that with your team. Simon Sinek talks about the two ways to influence human behavior from a management leadership perspective, and that is either through manipulation or inspiration. And manipulation, we all know it well. We all know, like if you keep working hard, I'll give you this financial bonus, or if you keep working hard, you'll become my favorite within the organization. So it's either through pushing and manipulation, but let's look at inspiration instead. This is something where you are creating an environment where people involved can start to work within their own values, the shared values they have with the practice of helping people be healthier and helping people be more successful in their lives, because their oral health is very healthy. They get to contribute to their fellow team members, possibly to their community, through other dental practice initiatives. They get to tap into the great satisfaction when we know we're doing a really good job. And you're creating an environment where they are inspiring themselves moving forward, that you're not constantly trying to drag them along with you. And it's this sort of environment that really does lay the groundwork for each of your team members, the owners of the practice included, where they can find great levels of fulfillment from their work. So what can you do starting January 2025 to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get your team members on board with the goals of the dental practice? Number one is that purpose. Let's start talking about the purpose, why we're all here. One of the things I do encourage all of our clients and our students within the dental practice management course is to look at the SBS episode of Insight that was recorded a number of years ago now, but it was talking about the access to dental treatment. And in the audience, they had a whole bunch of people who could not access dental treatment, either because of shame, because they were so embarrassed by their mouth, they didn't have the money to do it, they had enormous fears and phobias around it. they had drug addiction issues, and now that as a result they're over their drug addiction issues, but they've got this terrible mouth. All of these reasons why people don't access dental treatment. Because I feel like what normally does happen with people in the dental space, when you say, what about the impact your work has on people? The kind of people that run through their minds are the kind of people that they see on a regular basis. The people that do access dental care. They come in for their general checkups and cleans, or they come in every couple of years when there's a small issue at play. Nothing life-threatening, nothing lifestyle-threatening. But this program on Insight, this is called the Dental Gap. This program showed all the people that weren't accessing dental care. And so they did have life-threatening and lifestyle-threatening conditions going on in their mouth, whether it was loss of teeth, terrible perio, terrible breath, they couldn't eat and function properly, they can't speak properly, they can't have their self-confidence is damaged because they've got such shame about the appearance of their mouth, or they're in constant pain every day or discomfort every day. The list goes. You can imagine the worst kind of oral conditions of people living in this country. And when you start looking at the impact that you're having as dental team members on a community, look at that group. Recognize what you're helping people try to avoid. And it's all of a sudden, the meaning you attach to your work explodes because you truly understand the kind of work that you're doing and the kind of impact that you're having. And so as a group, it might be a great step moving forward that one of your first team meetings in January is getting that recording link. I'll pop it in the show notes of this episode, and watch it as a group and then discuss it as a group. When you start to recognize if you didn't have enough teeth, if you had terrible breath, if you couldn't eat properly, so your nutrition's going down and health going down, if you had all these things going wrong, what job interviews would you go for? Would you go and start a new hobby which required you to speak to a fresh new group of people? Would you go out on dates to try to meet a life partner? And when you start to recognize how much of your lifestyle and life, the health of your body is impacted by these very poor oral conditions, then you can start to really understand the impact that you're having as a dental practice. It may even trigger a community involvement response by your team that will add even more meaning to your team members, to turning up to work every day when you've got initiatives such as opening the practice the fourth Saturday of every month, and we just see pro bono cases. We see people who cannot access dental treatment, but we're there to help them. That will create enormous meaning for all of your team members and yourself in the work that you all do. So really tap into purpose. Why are we here? And then the next step is to make sure you've identified clear goals and you articulate them very clearly to all of your team members. So they understand what the goal is with great clarity. They understand what the plan is, how we're going to achieve this goal with great clarity. And they understand what their role is in achieving this goal with great clarity. The risk of people just turning up to work for another work day and doing the same old thing every day is enormously strong. And we really do need to put that time and effort into discussing as a group and with each individual person. So we all know exactly, how does my personal behavior change? What are the different things that I'm doing? And when they have got that bright, shiny goal and that huge purpose behind that, all of a sudden they're quite comfortable with going to the effort of doing things differently on a day-to-day basis. The next step is to make sure that the communication lines are open for whenever your team members need to gain greater clarity, be maybe remotivated on that particular day. They need to be able to share their ideas about, I reckon if we tried it this way, it might actually work. You just keep those communication lines open. Keep talking about things. Keep supporting people with whatever they need in terms of that ongoing conversation. So do change the agenda items on your, if you don't have regular team meetings, make sure you do have them every month, at least every couple of weeks is always a good idea. They don't have to be extraordinarily lengthy, but they do need to be creating that environment for everyone to be able to have input. Another part of communication is open door management. So whenever anyone's having trouble of any kind in terms of the task that they're completing for this achievement of the goal, that they can come to you anytime and you just drop things, unless you're directly speaking with another team member or patient at the time, just drop whatever you're doing and be there for that person. But there are a bunch of people that may not come to you in that opportunity for communication. So this is where the team meetings are great, because maybe that's the way that you'll get people to be brave enough to say, oh, and I've got an issue with this as well, because not everyone will naturally just approach their superior with a minor issue of the day. When it happens, I've got to be confusion about this, but now all these other things have happened in the operation of the day. Doesn't seem as important anymore, so I'm just going to drop it. But when we are meeting together, and the purpose of that section of the team meeting is to talk about how are we all going, that's the forum you can start raising things. So do provide those opportunities for communication. Also, support. Recognize that if you're asking your team members to be different in any way, to behave any differently, to do different things that they don't normally do, provide the support that is required, create the environment for success. Let's role play things. Let's do the team training that's required. Let's discuss it as a group and have the whole group decide on how we're going to be best equipped moving forward. And so do provide the level of support that is required. Part of the support is acknowledging people when they're doing all the right things. And an impactful way of providing support, once you've done all that core training, is the morning huddles. Every morning huddle, identify people who you see that are doing the things that are different, acknowledging them, thank you. Even if they didn't do it well, still acknowledge the effort. Ask the questions with our goal achievement process. What worked well for us yesterday? What could have been improved upon? Make sure you're always providing those reminders. Remember, this week we're focusing on this aspect of the goal achievement. Remember, this aspect of the goal achievement is making sure that we've providing the patients with more resources about the treatment recommendations that we are making for them. And so people do require that daily reminder to maintain the level of importance and urgency over their altered behaviour. We're trying to avoid everyone just going back into the usual everyday way of doing things. Also, when you're just functioning throughout the day, call out when you're watching people doing the right thing, not when they're not doing the right thing. But call out when people are doing the right thing. Always reward the behaviour that you want repeated. Keep in mind that when we reward people in the moment, number one, we're providing them with great clarity that that is exactly the behaviour that we want, and thank you so much for that. So it's helping that person repeat that good behaviour. But then also, anyone that is witness to you providing that positive reinforcement, they're learning as well, and they're gaining greater clarity about what is the desired behaviour that we've all identified is the way forward. The next step to do is provide updates. Use these monthly team meetings to gather the key performance indicators that indicate whether you are achieving your goals or not. That you as a group are saying, yep, that strategy is working well with those series of tasks, but this strategy, well, maybe we can tweak that even further. Keep people inspired by the progress you are achieving in the achievement of your practice goal. It would be very difficult to maintain motivation to lose weight, for example, if you weighed yourself in January and you weren't planning to weigh yourself again until December. And then you're just got fingers crossed all the way through. Is what I'm doing even working? If we feel like we are going to wasted effort, that's very demotivating. However, when we see the progress that we're making, that's very motivating. So provide that constant update of where we're at with your monthly team meetings as well. You can also post some of the key performance indicators on little posters in the staff room, whatever it takes to help people understand what I'm doing is making a difference, and therefore I'm motivated moving forward. And the final step of making sure that you are creating the right environment for your team members is celebration. So let's make sure that when we do have those wins, we are patting ourselves on the back. We're identifying all the reasons, all the wonderful things that we did that contributed to that next step of progress. Celebration is an enormous part of it. Recognize that there's going to be a culmination of all your efforts by the end of the year. And so talk about how you're going to celebrate in December once you've achieved your goal, so everyone can start to envisage that celebration, that wonderful feeling of achieving the practice goals. Recognize, it could be a party, it could be a dinner, it could be a team building event, it could be whatever is going to be a great reward for everyone's effort moving forward. But then throughout the year, have these celebrations. If you have achieved the monthly goals all the way through, then impromptu celebrations can be enormously powerful. Studies indicate that planned celebrations have a particular inspiring impact on people, but impromptu, unplanned celebration, it's even stronger, the impact that you have on people. And so if you know that at the next staff meeting, you're going to be delivering the fantastic news, yes, we have achieved that next step, then bring in a platter of fantastic cheeses and meats and sandwiches and things for that lunch as a thank you to everyone and an acknowledgement and celebration of what you've achieved in that past month. So certainly celebrate your wins along the way and acknowledge all the wins of individual team members along the way as well. If you have any questions or you would like assistance with this process of achieving your dental practice goals for 2025, then reach out anytime. Always remember that the Academy is there for all dental practices, only $70 a month, and you've got access to a whole bunch of training videos, templates, downloads. We've got our live interactive sessions every month with the Academy as well. And you've got the Academy chat where you literally got Amina and myself sitting there with you, an AI version of us that you can ask it anything at all, and it will provide very wonderful guidance and answers for you moving forward. And so always reach out if you need us at all. But good luck with the identification of goals, the planning of achieving those goals, and getting yourself and your team on board for a fantastically powerful 2025. If you enjoyed this podcast, then I encourage you to head over to Amina and my website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. You will find all the information that you need if you would like to gain our assistance in helping you and your team achieve great success. If you would like to find out more, you can also email us directly at info@dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Thanks so much for listening.